Hi, I'm Dan from Sunshine Coast, Queensland, and I play at Mount Coolum Golf Course. Welcome to Golf Smarter.
Hi, this is Tobias Abrahamsson from Stockholm, Sweden, and I play at Åkersberga Golf Country Club. This is Golf Smarter number 1017.
This is not just a GPS app. We're not telling you distances, we are telling you outcomes. We are predicting where your shots are going to go. This is something that is going to tangibly improve your score. I go get a swing change or I go get a lesson, right? There's going to be this period where you're making adjustments and you're trying to get used to the new swing, get used to the new feels. You're going to be practicing quite a bit. Same thing with new clubs. There's not like this immediate impact to your score. That's not true with making better decisions. Making better decisions has an immediate impact. Literally overnight, you're going to reduce your scores because you're not going to be making mental mistakes anymore. You're going to be playing the high percentage shot every single time if you take Noonan's recommendations. If you make the highest percentage shot every single time, you're inevitably going to play better because of all the mental mistakes you would typically make. So if you're really looking to make a material impact on improving your score, give Noonan a try.
Noonan Caddie app reads your launch monitor data to suggest your next best shot with creator Matt Williams.
This is Golf Smarter, sharing stories, tips, and insights from great golf minds to help you lower your score and raise your golf IQ. Here's your host, Fred Green.
Welcome to the Golf Smarter podcast, Matt.
Good to see you, Fred.
Good to see you too. There's a movement of AI in golf that has to be discussed. And I'm so glad that we have you on to talk about this because of what you're taking advantage of by bringing AI into golf. But when I first got the email from Matt Williams, I'm like, oh my God, the baseball player, the former Giant. Oh, I'm so excited. Wait a minute, you're not Matt Williams. You're Matt Williams. Does that happen too often?
It actually does.
Were you a fan?
To be honest, I've never been a big fan of baseball. It ruins my golf swing. So I figured I'd focus and do the one thing I'm good at.
Good. But I want us, before we get to AI, let's talk about indoor golf and simulator golf, because there's a definite movement going on for more and more people finding that simulator golf is as fun, maybe more fun, because it's a controlled environment and it doesn't take 4.5 hours.
Yeah.
I think that kind of fills it in right there, right?
I mean, enough said.
We've got a lot of podcasts to go. Don't do that.
No, I'm kidding. Like I could speak all day about this. What I think is really interesting. There's a lot of really good, I think, articles coming out recently, and they're analyzing just kind of why golf simulators and the usage of this technology is expanding. And you hit on two major factors, right? Obviously, one, you can play all day, all winter long, whether it's light out, dark out, raining, cloudy, whatever it is, right? I mean, you can continue to play indoors and on these simulators. But the other thing that I think is particularly interesting is, the rapid expansion of golf has, we hear about it all the time. It's the most amount of golf I think that's been ever played in history. And
that's since COVID. Because pre-COVID, there was struggles going on. There was a lot of talk in the industry about how are we going to survive.
100%.
And courses were closing all over the place.
And via COVID, frankly, concepts like Topgolf, a lot of people have been introduced to the game. And like you and I know, it's a fantastic game and we get hooked immediately. So you've got all this interest and demand that has come in. But unfortunately, the supply of golf courses has remained stagnant. So the statistic that I have seen is golf participation has grown 40% since 2019. And essentially the golf course supply has remained stagnant. So the question is, where is all this excess demand going to go? Because golf courses, for the most part, are full. 64% are operating at capacity. So, amazing. Whether it be the just availability of tee time or the amount of time it takes, a lot of these participants and these golfers are starting to turn to golf simulators as a way to scratch that itch.
Well, and then there's two phases of that. people have the simulators in their homes.
Yeah.
Right? Or now that facilities are opening up where people can go, kind of like, you bring up, and Barney Adams brought this up months and months ago when I asked him about Topgolf. Is it having an impact on the growth of the game? And he's like, no, because people go to Topgolf. They don't necessarily go start playing golf. It's like you go to a bowling alley and not everybody who goes bowling joins a league.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, good point. I guess that could be considered.
I might disagree with that a little bit. I think
Please.
you can't underestimate the impact that Topgolf has had. They have introduced people to the concept of golf, even though it's not true golf. It is golf. Like that is undeniable. And I think where people rag on Topgolf a little bit is they never really had a concept that helped customers when they graduated from that Topgolf experience, right? There's an evolution that you go through from getting introduced to the game to becoming, a golfer on an 18-hole golf course. Mm-hmm. And Topgolf is top of the funnel, right? It is getting people introduced, the people, the 20 million people who are quote unquote interested in playing golf. It has given them a frictionless kind of, low risk way to start hitting shots and kind of, experience that shot euphoria that gets you hooked initially. But after that, that's where everybody else, we have to pick up the slack, because once they've gotten that itch and gotten the bug, they've hit their shots at Topgolf, they've seen it go into those, giant holes in the ground. Now they're ready to go and start playing more serious golf. And, to go from Topgolf all the way down to a golf course, that's a huge leap. And golf simulators and launch monitors, that gives them, again, that low risk way to play. They're not holding people up. They're not, having to spend 4 hours. They can get kind of a nice condensed experience in a true golf type experience, albeit virtual. But then they can kind of start taking those baby steps, actually making it onto the golf course itself. And again, I kind of come from a sales background, right? Top of the funnel, you got to get people in the door before you can ever kind of move them through. And I think Topgolf has done a great job in doing that.
Interesting, because, there was that opportunity as well with video games, that started around the turn of the century, around 2000, and even before that. And that had, I've heard of people who said, yeah, I was really good at the, Tiger Woods game. And so I thought I'd try golf and realized, oh my God, this game is really hard. Yeah. And so it may have been a turn on or a turn off. I mean, I've heard stories on both ends of that. But video games really didn't have the impact of simulators. I mean, it's a completely different experience because you're actually not using your thumbs to play the game. Yeah. You're actually swinging a golf club. And then there was the virtual, and I never had one, so I don't know, but like they came up with these sticks that attach to your screen, not attached, wirelessly attached, and you can swing the stick as if it's a golf club and pretend the virtual stuff.
Yeah.
Not explaining this well.
No, I think you're explaining Golf Plus and more of like a virtual reality type experience.
Right.
To be honest, I haven't played on one of those. I know Meta put a pretty big focus on developing the metaverse and things like that, but it still kind of looks cartoony. I'm more of a technologist, so I very much believe that will be a thing eventually once, the technology catches up. But, I think the experience, at least at this point, is it's still not quite there for mass adoption, right? You're going to get the early adopters, the people who are really wanting to try new tech, but to kind of get to that, early majority, I think it's got a little bit ways to go, but the concept is promising.
And what do you think about the growth and the potential growth of these locations, simulator locations, where people can go and aren't you involved in that as well?
We are, yeah. So frankly, our entrepreneurship journey started with one indoor golf facility here in Kansas City. We all had corporate jobs. We were, this was during COVID, so we had that itch to play golf year round. And we had access to one TrackMan launch monitor at a local club fitter, but that was, you couldn't really play that very consistently because he was running a business. So the idea is, hey, what if we turn this into a business? And we decided to take the leap. We all made the investment. We, at the time, having kind of a golf performance facility, which is more just strictly memberships. We don't do food and bev, restaurants, everything at that time, you had a simulator paired with a bar restaurant. And that was the concept. And for us as avid golfers, people who were really more looking for a place to practice and train rather than go to an entertainment concept, that didn't exist. Certainly not in our area. And frankly, around the country, it was a very novel concept. So we wanted something that, one, appealed to us. So it had to have high-end technology. And number two, it had to have kind of a low operations effort, right? We all had the day jobs. We couldn't be there 24/7. So we needed really a concept that would allow people to come into the facility, even if we weren't there. So it kind of has a badge in, badge out type access system. They pay a monthly fee and then they can use the facility anytime. So that concept is called Golf Track. The first location was great. We were cash flow positive in 60 days. We were full on a wait list in 4 months. Really appealed very well to our core demographic. That led us to open up our second location, just about 20 minutes away from the first one. We then decided, hey, if that's not enough, let's start franchising this, because we got a lot of inbound requests from people saying, is this a franchise? Have you thought about franchising? And we realized there was a big opportunity out there. So made the investment, stood up the franchise operations. We've now sold 16 franchise units, coast to coast, all the way from Eugene, Oregon, down to Tampa, Florida. So this is something that I think is continuously accelerating. We've kind of proven the concept. What's a little bit unique about the Golf Track concept is it has the memberships, but it also pairs it. It's not just a strictly unmanned 24/7 concept, right? We have a PGA instructor who is doing lessons and club fittings as well, so that people who are coming into the facility practicing, they have, somebody that they could, get a lesson from or get a club fitting for new equipment. So it really kind of, completes essentially the entire ecosystem of what avid golfers like us actually want. And we didn't just do just TrackMan launch monitors. We actually invested in PutView. That's another core partner of ours, because one of the things that we surveyed the members and we asked them, what's the one thing that's missing? They said short game. We got to have short game. So we didn't just want to put a putting green. We thought, hey, if we've got a nice tech-enabled facility, we better have tech on our putting green. And PutView is a great partner. If you're not familiar, but they effectively do kind of a simulator type concept on a putting green. They map out the undulations, and they have basically a projector that displays aim lines, games, all different kinds of things onto the putting surface itself. So you can practice different ladder drills, you can play darts, you can play tic-tac-toe. It's really cool, and all the time you're really kind of honing in on your aim and your putting stroke and making sure that short game is just as good as your long game.
I'm curious with the Golf Track, like when you first started, you're in Kansas City. Did you do research about maybe this isn't the best location to start to test this? Is this a great golf community, or do we have potential of people who want to play that aren't getting out there? I mean, why Kansas City is the start, and what other options were there?
Well, I mean, we're all located in Kansas City, so it was never really a question of, would we go somewhere else? The question certainly was, will this actually work in our market? We, certainly have winter. Like we have, a period during the winter when it's not ideal to play. For the most part, you can play in just about every single month. There's enough warm days where, it's above 45, 40 is kind of the cutout for me at least. So there's definitely times in the winter in December, January, February where it peaks and you can get out there. Our courses remain open as long as it's warm enough, you can get outside, as opposed to like, Iowa, Minnesota, where, certainly the golf courses shut down. So there was a little bit of concern. It's like, hey, well, if theoretically you can play outside year round, will people actually use this? And that was actually, frankly, why we built our Noonan platform. So we were concerned about seasonality. We were concerned about people not wanting to come indoors when they could play outdoors. And what was pretty interesting to us is those first people that came in, they would hit clubs, they would hit shots, and they kept complaining that our tech is wrong, right? They're like, no, those yardage numbers are wrong. Turns out they were wrong, right? They had inflated egos and different views on how good they were and how far they actually hit their shots. And the data told a very different story. So the thought I had is, hey, if they're making bad decisions or don't truly understand how they're hitting their shots indoors, when it's perfect lies, no distractions, I guarantee you they're thinking, incorrectly about their game when they actually go out on the golf course. So I got to thinking, I come from a tech background. I've sold software for my entire career. I definitely know what it's capable of, kept up to date with all kind of the trends in AI and things of that nature. And I figured, hey, we could take that data, right, that understands exactly how you hit each club, pair that with GPS information of a golf course, and we could actually make recommendations on what club you should hit and where to aim better than a human could. And we do that by essentially mapping your dispersion pattern and creating a statistical representation of where you're most likely to hit. So when our app is working and out on the golf course with you, it acts like a digital caddy. You literally push a button and it scans the hole. It analyzes essentially every club and aim combination based off the data you've inputted from your launch monitor sessions, and it calculates what your likelihood is to hit the fairway, green, penalty area, bunkers, for each club and aim in your bag. And it'll say, okay, well, this club and aim combination is the best because it gives you highest odds to hit your target, whether it be the green or the fairway, while also minimizing your risk of hitting it into a penalty area. And I use it exclusively on the golf course. I don't use my rangefinder anymore. I literally just hit a button and it tells me my quote unquote, literally my high percentage shot. And I hit that and it works phenomenal. It reduces those big misses that I have. And I'm a one handicap. So I'm out there, even though I've played golf my entire life, 4 or 5 times out of the round, it'll actually tell me I should hit something different than I typically would think of. And it's right. So it's a phenomenal experience. And I'm really excited. This is obviously something we built for our facility. We're partnering with other indoor facilities, but we're also trying to get, other folks who are using these launch monitors, using kind of more of this data-driven approach to golf and want maybe a second opinion on some of these shots and maybe a way to reduce their scores.
Well, you got way ahead of me. We were gonna talk about the Noonan app,
you opened the door, and I took it.
I know, and you jumped right through it. Let me guess, you've done sales. So, but I do want to talk more about the golf track locations, the physical locations, and we will talk more about Noonan app. But I do have to ask, when you said that you're using the Noonan app, and it told you to do something different than you had planned.
Yeah.
Were most of those changes, corrections, suggestions, ego crushing? I mean, were you thinking you should do the other shot because of ego or because of skill level? Because clearly you have that.
Yeah, I think it is a little bit of ego. I think it's one, it's ego. And then number two, it's just the ability to only have so much in your mind at one time, right? And I'll give you an example. So we typically think of our clubs in terms of average carry distance. Well, frankly, I think we would even just say average distance, which in most cases includes roll. Well, if you've got forced carry, like carry distance, frankly, is probably the most important ththing. How many people have actually measured what their carry distance is for every single club? Unless you're using a launch monitor,
it's almost impossible. Yeah. Because you're not, the only way you can do that is with a launch monitor, right?
Correct. So you need to know those numbers, because if you've got a forced carry over water or over a bunker or short-sighted, you got to know what that carry number is. But then you also need to understand what your miss is, right? Because you don't hit an average carry. An average is literally an average of multiple numbers, meaning you hit it short of that number and you hit it long of that number. And the average is somewhere in between. So what you really need to understand is the likelihood that you will hit it a certain distance. And that's where more of a statistical dispersion pattern comes into play, because we understand what your variance is or what your mishits are. So when I say you should hit, a 7-iron, and I'm recommending that because you've got a forced carry over water, we're doing that because we have calculated your likelihood to carry the water with that club, and it's better than an 8-iron. So where you tend to see some discrepancy between what people's gut tells them they should hit and what the data shows, it's often because Yeah, the average number probably is a little bit closer to the pin, but if they mishit that club in any way, they're now in big trouble. And it's those big numbers that really inflate your score. So what you should be doing is you should be mitigating against any of that risk. So in that particular case, it's better to club up and take that water out of play, even if you hit a bad shot, right? And just accept you might have a little bit longer of a putt than to try and, force an 8-iron and really hope and pray that this is the time that you're going to catch it nice.
Yeah. And I'm curious, when, we talk about carry distance and total distance, with your wedges, I'm sure you're really good at getting a lot of backspin on the ball. I've never
depends on
been
if I
able,
clean them.
Yeah, right. But I've never done that. And I would like to see what it looked like on your carry distance and your total distance, because your total would be less than your carry.
For sure.
It's not what you've experienced? Have you?
No, it absolutely can be.
I've never seen that
for the most part. I mean, we've definitely seen pros that'll spin it back 30 feet or something like that. I mean, you see that for sure. That generally doesn't impact what a recommendation would be. It's interesting to definitely see like a carry distance being longer than a total distance in some cases, but for the most part, you're not too worried about, spinning it back all the way off the green into a water hazard. For most, I would say, 99 point, X%.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely just thinking of what I see on television. Right?
100%,
because
100%.
You just don't see. I've seen where I've had some backspin on the ball, and it's like, because my mark, my divot is here and my ball's back here. That's interesting. I didn't know I can do that.
Yep.
So I would think that I've always wondered, how did they know how much backspin they're going to get on it? Yeah, it's just my ignorance. Okay.
Well, I mean, it comes down to understanding your numbers, right? I mean, if you're in a launch monitor and you're hitting shots with each club, it is telling you that. It is calculating what your spin rates are, and it will show you that, hey, your total distance, you're typically on average getting, less total distance than you do carry distance because of the amount of spin that you're generating. So, if you don't know those numbers or you haven't plugged those into an app like Noonan, when you're out on the golf course, like you're making decisions based off of an incomplete data set, frankly, right? You're going into it blind. You're thinking you hit your clubs one way based off of what? An assumption, a time that you hit it good one time, you're judging it from 150 yards away in a driving range. You can't really see where the ball lands. Like it's an incomplete way. So, our expectation and frankly, what we've seen is, the use of these launch monitor technology, the way that the access is improving through facilities like Golf Track or the technology getting cheaper, like this is eventually going to be table stakes for any golfer. They're all going to be hitting with launch monitors in some form or fashion. Everybody at the pro level is doing it. Everybody at the, elite, collegiate level is doing it. A lot of amateurs, avid golfers are doing it. And then soon it'll be kind of that late majority laggers who are adopting as well.
You talked about with the Golf Track facilities that you opened. There's so many questions I have about that, and I'm going to go back, but I promise I'll bring it back to Noonan. But how many, when you started out, how many stalls per employee that you had running? I mean, I love the idea of bringing in a head pro there, a teaching pro to have there on staff. And I've seen that at Topgolf as well. But what was the ratio? I mean, other than the physical location, you didn't have a kitchen to worry about to start, I would think. So your overhead, and you said you were profitable in 60 days with that first location. Amazing.
Yeah.
So what was that ratio there? I'm curious.
Yeah. The first location was about 2,000 square feet and we had 3 TrackMan bays and a putt view. That was manned by one resource. They were there pretty much, 8 to 5 most days. We try and get those resources essentially generating revenue as well, whether they're doing the lessons and the club fittings. So that was, pretty much the model. Mostly that person is helping with onboarding. They're there to answer questions because inevitably with technology, there's always going to be a little bit of an issue. Your computer didn't restart or what have you. It's sold out, pros, things like that. You do need some support. And if it's not going to be you as the owner, right, you better have a staff member to help support that. So that was kind of the model that we had. And what's nice is now that we've started to expand, that ratio really doesn't change. You can still manage multiple facilities with the same FTE resource. So you start to get economies of scale once you grow beyond that. And that's definitely what we experience. So we've got, kind of a GM operator that's managing the facilities, kind of taking day-to-day operations. They also do lessons. So they're revenue generating resource. And then we've got, a couple head professionals. One is fully on staff. Another, sometimes kind of rents out the facilities, and we do some partnerships with the club fitters and some other teaching pros if they need access to our facility, and we work with them on that. But all of those things are just extra revenue streams. The majority of our revenue is just monthly memberships. So once we start to tack on things like leagues and services from lessons and club fittings, that just kind of increases the per unit revenue. And that's what's been really appealing as we started to franchise is we really do focus a lot on finding owner operators who are PGA instructors. The model works extremely, extremely well. The unit economics change so dramatically if you are the person who is also managing the facility, because you're paying yourself, right? So essentially your salary is covered by those monthly memberships. And then that book of business that you've likely brought over from your teaching career, they're going to convert over to membership. So that's going to help you get off the ground much quicker. But then all of those services revenue is going to go straight to your bottom line, right? So the unit economics, like I said, the margin profiles are extremely attractive when you are that owner operator. So we've got, a great franchisee in Nebraska who is, fits that profile. Very excited. He's going to do extremely well. And then, as far as we also definitely do appeal to the investor types. We just sold our entire Kansas City market to an investor, and they're looking to, essentially own and operate 5 different locations. So for them, they're all hiring one of our resources to become the GM, and they're going to manage the day-to-day operations. But it's obviously a great business to invest in because, it is providing a semi-passive revenue stream.
And with the golf track expanding in the beginning, how did you get the word out to make it, booking up so quickly? And I guess having a waiting list, people have to book in advance, just like on the golf courses now. Did you use social media, or how did you get the word out so quickly and make it such a success so fast?
I mean, partnerships were key, right? We knew in our local area, and this is why I think franchises is important, because every golf community is going to be a little bit different. There's going to be connectors in the ecosystem that, are going to help drive, interest, as well as people to actually come in and check out the facility. So getting those partnerships in place, we partnered with the local, it's called Central Links. They manage all of the local tournaments on an amateur and USGA qualifying basis. So we did partnerships with them. We did partnerships with local businesses who had kind of some connective tissue to our concept. And then, of course, social media, advertisements, radio. I mean, we literally tried virtually every single channel that we could possibly think of, identified which ones were working really well, which ones don't work really well. And that's kind of given us, obviously the playbook, so that when we opened our second location, we opened that one profitable from day one, because we had already pre-sold a wait list. We had those people, those members ready to go. So we had kind of that break even membership number already signed up that were essentially using the first facility while we were getting the second location already stood up. So, it becomes pretty much rinse and repeat after you figure out what works and what doesn't.
And what time of year did you open the first one? Did you do it at a time when people can't play golf, or did you while they're high on playing on a regular basis?
Yeah, we definitely try and time these, to coincide with the indoor season. So the first one opened in August of 23. Second one, unfortunately, we had some permitting things. Those things will happen. We didn't get that one open until January, but it was still kind of during those winter months, and we didn't have any trouble opening. I could definitely see if you try and open it in kind of early spring when people are starting to get excited about outdoor golf, that, there may be a little bit of a challenge, but, definitely for the avid golfer, they see use of this technology, even when it gets nice outside, as really an integral part of their practice routine. So it is kind of interesting. There's a seasonality aspect that will happen. After February, you see a little bit of a drop off, but then once that drop off stops, it actually starts to pick up again, because then you start to get people who are now going outside. They realize, I'm hitting balls at a driving range, or like, I can't get in. And they realize, all of the things we talked about, just the downsides of outdoor golf. Like, hey, I need to supplement this with something I can do 24/7, and they become members at that point. So it's kind of interesting. There's this up and down thing that happens when you typically would think it would continue to go down during the summer. It actually starts to pick back up.
Yeah. So with the membership aspect of it, do you allow people just walk-ins, or if they're going to rent a bay for X amount of time, they have to become a member?
Correct. They have to be a member, or we do guest passes for them to come in with a member. But yeah, we don't do any kind of public, fee, hourly bookings, anything like that. You can get a lesson, you can get a club fitting if you're not a member. Members get discounts on both of those. So there's, incentives to just joining the facility. But yeah, we very much operate kind of like a boutique gym, where, you become a member and you pay that monthly fee, but you get unlimited access to the facility, which is really, really nice.
But with limited amount of bays, you're going to have, it's like unlimited access if you can get access, right?
Yeah. And that's why we do a couple of things to curb that, right? We do caps on our memberships. So we don't, exceed essentially a 40 to 1.
What your minimum is, you have to be, but you do have a cap on your maximum number.
We have a cap on the maximum. We don't exceed.
You have waiting lists?
Yeah. Yeah. During the winter, we get the waiting list. Yeah.
The most exclusive golf clubs have waiting lists, and you have an indoor facility playing off of simulators, and you have waiting lists.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good. Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
Appreciate that.
So if you've got this really successful physical brick and mortar business going on that you've now franchised in 16 locations and growing, what do you project for 2026?
2026, we want to be at 100. We kind of look at the comparables now that we're kind of in the franchising world. Frankly, we didn't come from this space. We've got a CMO who is very experienced. She ran title boxing for a number of years, which grew to several hundred franchise units. But kind of what the insiders are saying is indoor golf franchises are among the, if not the fastest growing franchise concept out there. Wow. And you get a lot of people, obviously, very much like us, who want to own a business. They'd like to do it in something that they enjoy, golf being a pretty popular sport. And this is a great way to kind of get introduced into entrepreneurship. So we are getting tons of just inbound requests about people kind of in our shoes who, are maybe stagnant in their career, looking to do a little bit of a side hustle, whatever it is, right? Maybe get out of the pro shop and, folding t-shirts and own a business and kind of control their agenda. That is a dream for a lot of these people, especially these head pros that are just, they're working their butts off in these facilities. And in many cases, their earning potential could be capped. The time away from family is a huge, downside of working in some of those traditional facilities. So business ownership obviously gives them the ability to really control their own schedule. And I think that's a very appealing thing for a lot of people who really have that entrepreneurial bug.
One of the biggest surprises I've ever had on this podcast is the amount of golf instructors that listen. to the show because they use it as a resource to hear other instructors and what they're doing. So go ahead and make your pitch. I mean, I'm delivering them to you. I'm not asking for a referral fee, but here's your opportunity to have them sign up for this. How do they do it?
Absolutely. So go to golftrackfranchising.com.
Spell golf track.
Good point. Golf, GOLFTRK.com. And there's a section called franchising. Yeah, check us out. Look, I'll be the first one to say business ownership's not for everybody. Right. This is not a completely hands-off concept. Frankly, there is no business that is this quote unquote passive. I don't believe in that. But if you are looking to really control and own your own business and manage it, frankly, you're doing a lot of this right now, right? You're teaching lessons, you're going and finding your customers, you're doing all the things that require, a business owner to do. So having your own business and being able to take advantage of all the hard work you've done in building your book of business, converting those over to members and having kind of that base salary then paid for, and then tacking on, all the services revenue that goes straight into your pocket instead of doing any kind of revenue share. It's a phenomenal concept and a way to do this. And right now is a good spot to get on, because if you look at just the growth that's happening in this, we haven't quite gotten past that growth curve. The adoption cycle is still early on. This is a good opportunity to kind of, put your stake in the ground and build your book, in your local community before, the saturation happens. So I think this is a phenomenal opportunity to get in. And like I said, just entrepreneurship is great. It's hard, but it's extremely rewarding. And if you're up for that and that's something that excites you, let's talk.
Okay, so here's what I'm really baffled about. Now we're going to pivot. Why, when you've developed this really compelling business for the 21st century that has legs, clearly has legs, and doesn't have legs, it has jets that are just exploding behind you as you're moving forward, would you go to move to develop an app? What do you, I know you're a tech guy and you're a software sales guy, but why isn't that kind of like small? I mean, why would you do that? I'm confused that.
Fair question. Ask myself that a lot. I mean, look, there was a period where I had a full-time day job. I was working at Golf Track, and my main responsibility is the Noonan app. So my business partner handles a lot of the Golf Track and the franchising. He's phenomenal at that. I handle a lot of the Noonan app side. So building a whole app, bringing it to market.
Hey guys, give Matt the app. It'll keep him busy.
Keep him out of our hair. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's always selling. Let's give him the
exactly. Let's give him something else. Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't, it's what I think what kind of happens is maybe it's like pent up entrepreneurial spirit, or I don't know what it is, but once you do make that leap and you start on this entrepreneurial journey, everything you see now becomes a new business concept. Right. Yeah. So every problem in our business now becomes a new problem and frankly, an opportunity that we can go build a business around.
They're not problems, they're opportunities.
They're opportunities. Exactly. So when we're like, hey, seasonality, that's a problem. I wonder if we could use that data on the golf course. Is anybody doing that? No. Interesting. I think that's a business. Starts out as just something that we could use for our facility. And then we're like, no, actually, this macro trend of use of launch monitors, why don't we just make it work with every launch monitor, not just TrackMan, but every launch monitor out there? And now this becomes a mass market solution. So that one has this massive high growth trajectory that we can potentially take advantage of, in addition to obviously the high growth opportunity that we have within the franchising. To tack on to that, now we've got like, hey, well, there's some other problems that happen kind of within indoor facilities, like our screens are essentially consumables. You get thousands of shots, actually millions of shots at this point, that are getting hit into this kind of small area of the screen. They develop holes, and that's aesthetically ugly. So you have to replace those. And those screen replacements can be $1,000 a pop. So what if we came up with a solution to help extend the life of those? That became, another project that we're in the process of going and developing. So now we've got essentially a new prototype that we've developed that will extend the screen life by about 10x. So
Wow.
Yeah, it's this weird thing where it's like, hey, you almost have to start to say no to things. Fortunately, we've come up with a couple good concepts that definitely have the legs, and we validated the product market fit, that it has made sense to actually go and invest the time and energy to build those out. And we feel like Noonan, just given the use of it, the feedback that we've gotten from folks in this industry, it's been extremely positive, and we're excited about the potential. But it's not easy.
And thus the definition of a serial entrepreneur. So now let's talk about that Noonan app. So if you have a launch monitor at home, like a Rapsodo, or something inexpensive, or you have your own launch monitor, or maybe you go to the driving range and they have a top tracer and you can use that. All that data that is being gathered on those launch monitors and saved, not just the warm-ups, but go out and hit all your different clubs. The Noonan app that you've developed accesses that information and then makes suggestions on the course of how to play the hole.
Correct.
Oof, that's pretty awesome. That's really, because the app ecosystem right now, the golf app community is pretty crowded.
It is
more and more. And we've not developed anything, but we've had many conversations. We've exposed many of these apps to our audience. And this one just has a different way of helping you with your game. This is really unique. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. The app market is extremely saturated. There's some licensing platforms that you can go out and do and get some basic GPS data. So the ability to simply say, here's your distance to certain areas of the golf course, that's, essentially a commodity at this point. So obviously we didn't want to do something that didn't add value. And specifically what our goal is to really extend the value that you're getting from these launch monitors, right? I think when you think about it, you've got this great treasure trove of data when you're out and you're practicing on a launch monitor. All that data that gets generated could be extremely valuable when you go outside, but there's nothing that's helping you bridge that gap. So the question becomes, how do I use my practice data to actually improve my on-course performance? Because at the end of the day, there's one question that's waiting for you at the end of every round, and that's, what did you shoot, right? Yep. That's the only thing that's important. And if you're not improving that score, you don't really feel that good at the end of the round about how you played that day. So we wanted a way that we could actually tangibly improve those on-course performance and improve your scores. And we felt, by frankly understanding the data, this is the easiest path, right? When I was in technology, it's all about just removing steps. How do you remove steps? How do you remove friction? How do you automate processes, right? The decision-making process for what club do you hit and where do you aim, it's simply that. It's a process. And where people tend to get stuck and make mistakes is they're using, incomplete data. They are, skipping steps in their process. They're not factoring in for information, where they're making human errors. And technology is phenomenal at reducing friction, reducing steps, and frankly, doing it correctly every single time. And that's what we're able to do. The missing link has always been the launch monitor data. We've always had information about the information on the golf course. We've always known how far is it to a bunker, how far is it to a green, middle, front, back. All that information we've always known. But how do you pair that? And
also what clubs you're playing, because you have to enter that data yourself. Right, exactly.
Exactly. But we've never really had the detailed data about exactly how you hit each club. And we need to know not just, the averages, but also, like I talked about earlier, the variance in your shot pattern. So now that we've got essentially those two data sets, if we just combine them, all of a sudden we can make decisions better than a human can. And we can eliminate all those human error that happens when you're making those shot decisions. So this has really kind of become, frankly, a new way to play golf. Haven't quite coined the right term. I don't know if it's, high percentage shot or, the kind of making decisions based off of the percentages rather than the yardages, but that's effectively what it is. You start to think about shots, not in terms of how far does a club go, but you start to think about it in terms of what gives me the best chance to hit my target while also mitigating my risk. And that's frankly, a more enjoyable way of playing golf. I liken it to when I'm on a really nice golf course like Pinehurst, and you've got a great caddy with you, and they just hand you a club and say, okay, aim over there, right? And all you focus on is swinging. It's such a freeing experience because you're not weighed down by all those decisions, that all you're focused on is making a good swing, and you inevitably play better.
Can you use the app if you don't have a lot of data behind you? Is it also helpful if you're just coming off of, I went to TrackMan, I did track Top Tracer at my range for the first time the other day, so it really didn't hit all my clubs that day, but I've got limited amount. What would the Noonan app, and explain Noonan, Noonan?
Yep, correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Right.
Just like the Caddie Shack, just like Caddie.
Is that where you got it from?
Yeah. What's the most famous Caddie I can think of? It's Noonan.
Fluff. So you don't want to call an app.
Sorry, Bones. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Bones. There you go. I'm older. So if you don't have all that data, as you're building your data, is this app also helpful?
Yeah, so you do need launch monitor data, right? To get the best experience with Noonan, you need the launch monitor data. That's frankly why we built it. You don't need a ton. So what we recommend is a minimum of 10 shots per club. The more data, the better, but 10 gives us a good enough sample size to create that statistical dispersion pattern. So it takes about an hour, hit about 130 shots with your clubs, and you've got enough data to really make really good, intelligent decisions.
And what are the costs for this app program? Is there a cost?
There is, yeah. So we definitely see Noonan as a premium offering. This is essentially a replacement to manual decision making, and it's a score improvement tool. So the thing I always talk to people about is this is not just a GPS app, right? We're not telling you distances. We are telling you outcomes. We are predicting where your shots are going to go. So the cost is $200 a year. And this is something that is going to tangibly improve your score, because if you think about it, I go get a swing change or I go get a lesson, right? There's going to be this period where you're making adjustments and you're trying to, get used to the new swing and get used to the new feels. You're going to be practicing quite a bit. Same thing with, new clubs. There's not like this immediate impact to your score. That's not true with making better decisions. Making better decisions has an immediate impact. Literally overnight, you're going to reduce your scores because you're not going to be making mental mistakes anymore. You're going to be playing the high percentage shot every single time if you take Noonan's recommendation. So law of averages comes into play. If you make the highest percentage shot every single time, you're inevitably going to play better because of all the mental mistakes you would typically make. So if you're really looking to make a material impact and you're improving your score is your goal, give Noonan a try.
Wow. So it takes the ego out too.
Correct.
That's a hard thing to do. Caddies, a real caddy, someone to argue with, they've just met you and stuff, but having the AI, having the data there really can crush your ego.
What's really nice is, and I think this is pretty unique to Noonan, we're making all of our recommendations based off of the data you entered. So You were there, you hit the shots, you collected the data, you put it into the app. There's no guesswork of like, how did it make this decision? It's making it based off of the shots that you hit. So, how do you take your ego out of it? You look at the facts, and the facts are, this is how you hit each club. So you really can't argue with that because data doesn't lie. And I think that's what's unique. And that's what ultimately I think gives even myself the buy-in to use Noonan instead of any kind of rate. And I'm not making decisions myself. I'm out on the golf course hitting a recommend club, and I just go, tunnel vision on the aim line it gives me, and I hit the club that it told me to hit. And it's giving me really good recommendations every single time. And I've now played some of the best rounds I've played all summer because I've, drinking the Kool-Aid. Frankly, if I'm the founder, I better be using the product, right? So I use this exclusively. And I will say, like, this is a really fun way. I kind of an unforeseen consequence. When I'm out on the golf course, you don't really realize like the mental drain that happens when you're trying to make all these decisions and factor in all these things. Like it's tiring. And when you're just using an app to tell you what to do, you forego all of that. And it actually makes, golf more enjoyable. If you ever use like a self-driving car and you went on a long road trip and you get out of the car at the end of it, you're kind of like wiped and, really, really, really drained. But when you use a self-driving feature, you get out, like you actually feel kind of refreshed because like you haven't really been paying too much attention. You're kind of like hanging out and chilling. It's amazing. And the same thing.
I did that once and I got drowsy.
Yeah.
I wasn't as engaged when I was driving, and I got drowsy, and I'm like, okay, I got to turn that thing off for right now. That's the old guy looking up at it. Is it available for Android and Apple?
Good question.
iOS?
Right now it's just Apple. We are working on Android. We wanted to get Apple right first, and then copy it over to Android. We're still a small startup,
yeah. Do you have a project date of a projection of when it will be available for Android?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's relevant. Glad I brought that up. And what about your Golf Track members? Is there an advantage to be a Golf Track member to use the Noonan AI app?
There is. Yeah. They've been a great kind of test bed for us. Our corporate store members, they've all gotten free access to the app, and they've helped beta test it, given us feedback, told us kind of what they liked, what they didn't. So we've incorporated all that feedback into the platform itself. Moving forward for all of our Golf Track franchisees, we're not forcing them to use it. It's up to them. But what we do is give them a revenue share off of any subscription that they help influence. And that's the same thing that we offer, across the board. Golf Track members, or Golf Track franchisees get a little bit extra incentive, but, the opportunity exists for everybody, in every indoor golf facility, because we see this as a way to really help them not only make more money, but also improve the stickiness within their customers. Because if you get hooked on using Noonan, there's an interesting thing happens. You want to kind of prove that like you're better than the data says. So like you're going to come back to the facility, hit more shots, be like, bad data, didn't hit great that time. Let me hit some more, right? And upload that data. It's like, oh, that dispersion, there's no way I can only have like a 30% chance to hit the green from 150 out. Let me go collect more data, right? So all of that typically happens. You kind of get this like, flywheel effect that goes on. And yeah, overall it's a great way. So we're really focused on creating partnerships with those indoor facilities to help get the word out and help us sell Noonan, which gives you a monetary benefit to it.
Wow. And okay, $200 a year.
Yep.
But you can really amortize this in your head of like, this is really worth having. It's a lot cheaper than having a caddy for every round I play.
Correct.
A knowledgeable caddy who knows my game. It's fascinating. How do people find it?
So we are on the App Store. You can just search Noonan Caddie. Should be the first search that comes up. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. If you want to check out some of the content we posted, we've done some, here's how you play it, and we've shot some videos recently of some of my co-founders when they don't use the recommendations. You can kind of see what happens when you go against the recommendations. And spoiler alert, it goes in the water. But it's a great way to improve your game.
Well, I've always been attracted to young entrepreneurs because I was one myself at one point. And fascinated by where they're going and what they're bringing to the world of golf for now and in the future. And this is definitely fitting into the future. Congratulations, man. I wish you the best luck. I hope everything goes well. And if you're a Golf Smarter listener, you might want to check out the Noonan app, Noonan Caddie, Noonan Caddie on Apple. Matt, thanks so much for sharing this with us.
Thanks, Fred. Congrats on 1,000 episodes. That's awesome.